Does God give you more than you can handle? It's a question that lots of people have posed. Lots of people have said to one another in terrible times of distress, God won't give you more than you can handle. But is it true? Is it biblically based? Well, that was the conversation of our sermon last Sunday. And we'll look at 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verses 8 and 9 for this. Maybe there's been a time in your life where you felt like you were overwhelmed, where you couldn't fit one more thing onto your plate. And someone gave you that message. Well, God won't give you more than you can handle. To that, Paul responds, 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verses 8 and 9. He says, "We do not want you to be ignorant, brothers and sisters, about the hardships we suffered in the province of Asia. We were under great pressure, far beyond our ability to endure, so that we despaired even of life itself. Indeed, in our hearts, we felt the sentence of death. But this happened that we might not rely on ourselves, but on God, who raises us from the dead." Paul is telling the church in Corinth, the church, by the way, that is so bad, so messed up, and so naughty that they need not one but two letters. The church in Corinth, where he had to tell them in their first letter, don't sleep with your in-laws, don't sue members of your church, make sure you don't eat up all of communion, but save it for everybody else too. He has to tell that very same church, listen, sometimes life is so hard that you will feel absolutely crushed. You will feel like life is ebbing away. And we hear the pain in his words. We don't want you to be uninformed. We don't want you to be ignorant about the suffering that we survived, that we had to live through. And that saying is right. God won't give you more than you can handle. But maybe the way that we say it is incorrect. God won't give you more than you can handle, but life sure will. Life around every corner, it feels like, has something new and unexpected. Some diagnosis, some news, some night when a police officer shows up at your door, cap in hand, with bad news that you didn't want to receive that day. Sometimes it's a diagnosis. Sometimes it's a hospital waiting room where you didn't want to be that particular day. Everyone has a chance, a time, sometime in their life when they felt like they had more than they could handle. But what does God do when we're in those positions? I think about Genesis chapter 21. Abraham and Sarah are promised by God that they're going to have a huge family, so numerous that their family is going to be bigger than the Milky Way galaxy, more numerous than the stars in the sky, more numerous will your descendants be than grains of sand on the beach. But it takes years, and Abraham and Sarah begin to lose faith that God will keep his promise. And so Sarah hatches an absolutely evil plan. She says to her husband, sleep with my servant Hagar, and maybe through her you can have a child. It's modern day rape, and it's exactly what happens. Hagar has a son named Ishmael, and eventually Sarah and Abraham have a child, and when this happens, Sarah tells her husband, get rid of them. Abraham does just that, or he attempts to. He takes Hagar and their baby boy off into the wilderness, into the desert, where they're not supposed to survive, and really they can't without some kind of intervention. Hagar despairs over life itself. She's sure that she and her toddler are going to die. She lays him underneath the shade of a tree and walks off in the other direction so that she doesn't have to listen to the cry of her baby boy dying. And then God shows up. God saves them. God promises to make a nation out of Ishmael as much as any other nation. She calls God the God who hears me, the one who hears me. When life gives you more than you can handle, and at some point, it surely will, God hears you. He knows what it is to have more than you can handle. God will always be present in those moments, in those hospital waiting rooms, in the hardest moments of life. Those are the moments where oftentimes we come closest in our relationship with God. But know this, no matter the circumstances, God does and will continue to hear you and always give you his presence. Amen.